to 3D Experience World 2023.
We are here to be inspired and to push the limits of our own imagination.
The virtual twin being experienced is so important, not only to understand the invisible today, but to project the future of tomorrow.
You are a community of 7 million designers, engineers, students, entrepreneurs who are shaping the world around us.
Solidworks allowed me to take what was in my brain and build it into something that millions and millions of people now can use.
Well, there's a whole lot more to SolidWorks than I thought there was.
It's actually quite nice to be able to raise your hand, ask a question, and learn hands-on with people.
What I mostly came here for was to learn new ways to use SolidWorks in ways that I haven't thought of before.
The 3D experience is growing, and the SolidWorks community is coming together. It's fantastic every year.
We have built the 3D Experience Board to meet all your needs. At Dassault Systems, we believe in building long-term relationships, and together we are going to change the world.
Every day we see SolidWorks customers wanting to improve their core competencies in design and engineering, manufacture, communication, collaboration. And it's all for one reason. They want to deliver to their customers the best, most innovative product they can.
This building is 900,000 square foot. All those products are built in that one building.
Being able to use the factory flow simulation allows us to show those opportunities to those business unit leaders.
I know that you collectively can make a huge impact to our lives and to all those around us, a huge impact on the planet, a huge impact on the future. The end game, guys, is to improve life itself.
Things I do for clicks. There we go. Welcome. Here I am. Look at this hat. It's SolidWorks Red. That's for you, Eric. Hello, everyone. Welcome to SolidWorks Live. Happy holidays, of course. I hope you all have had wonderful 2023s full of growth, achievement, of course, happiness, fulfillment. You know, today as we move into the new year, we're going to show you how you can get your 2024 started off right. That's right. It is that time of year. Of course, what I mean is it's almost time for 3D Experience World, the SolidWorks conference of the year. So it's happening this year in one place only this year, Dallas, Texas, from February 11th to the 14th. And let me say, if our current registration numbers are any indication, more and more members of the community are ready fully ready to get back in person to learn from one another. And that can take the form of technical sessions, which I'll talk a little bit about in a moment, keynote speakers, product announcements, networking events, hardware exhibits, or just, plain old corridor run-ins. So we are going to give you insights into all of these facets of the event during our time together today. And while I'll be sharing some of my own personal opinions and excitements as a multi-time attendee myself, including a look at my own personal agenda for the conference later in this episode, I brought some friends, and they are going to show you some SolidWorks tech tips that you can take back to your office today. So that's right. I have 4 special guests to be exact, and 3 of them are, like many of you, members of the SolidWorks community working as designers and engineers in industry today. Oh, and one other thing they have in common, they will be in Dallas. They will be delivering individual technical sessions on SolidWorks stemming from their own industry workflows, which have no doubt been fine-tuned and learned over the course of years, if not decades. So they're going to drop in to tell you a little bit about what they've enjoyed about the conference, and I promise, and they promise, they will not leave until they've taught you something you did not know about SolidWorks heading into today. And then my 4th guest, have not mentioned him. He's a maestro of networking. He's a CSWE, Matt Clegg. So Matt Clegg's going to be joining us. He's running the largest SolidWorks community program in the world, the SolidWorks Champions program. And he, along with the rest of the community team, is actually running the networking sessions and meetups that are going to be featured at 3D Experience World. So we're going to check in with Matt a little bit later in the episode to hear what is in store for you in Dallas there. So that was a lot to get through. That's quite a lot, isn't it? So my goal, though, is singular. I have one goal, and it's so that, when you leave the stream, when it's all wrapped up, you're thinking, I cannot miss this event. I have to go to Dallas. As fun as it was, from my perspective, as fun as it was to deliver all or at least part of the event online back when we had to over the past few years, I'm really happy. I'm happy to know that we're getting back to our roots with World, and I cannot wait to see so many of you in Dallas. So I want to start this off here a little bit unconventionally. I just want to kind of solo it a bit. I know we're going to have a lot of first-time attendees here. So if you haven't attended the conference before, I wanted to go over really what, if you ask anyone who's been to 3D Experience World, what is the most popular aspect of the conference prior to, getting to our technical presenters here. The technical sessions, they are the most popular part of the conference. So there are primarily 2 types of technical sessions. These are, the areas where you're going to bring back the most mind share from the conference. And I want to go over this type first, these instructional courses. So with the instructional courses at World, and right now you're seeing actually a picture of what one looks like, as well as a brief scroll animation of the agenda. I believe this is for day 1 of 3D Experience World coming up in Dallas this February. This is where you can bring a pen, bring a pad, go with a coworker, go with someone you just met, and you can register for these sessions as you fill out your agenda, which you can do now on 3dexperienceworld.com. And you can learn a thing or two, whether it's from a fellow member of industry or maybe even an expert here from the team over at SolidWorks. And you can see they're teaching on a variety of different aspects. So if it's, SolidWorks, if it's SolidWorks PDM, if it's something manufacturing related, we have sessions that you can filter through that pretty much cover the gamut of different domain disciplines or different product disciplines that you'd want to check out. So that's number 1. These are kind of your classic, 1-hour classroom sessions that you can get into and learn quite a bit. And we're going to have technical previews today from 3 of our presenters that will give you, again, just a smidge, just a look at what those will be like. So that's one type of technical session. Again, that's where you're going to get the most mind share out of the conference as you head back, to your home cities and your offices. And, when everyone asks you, hey, what did you learn at the conference? What can I learn from you now that you've been there? That's one way you can do it. Now, the second way I want to discuss is hands-on sessions. So the hands-on sessions are probably my favorite personally. So these hands-on workshops, you can see everyone's on a laptop. These aren't their laptops. And this is one of the pieces of these particular types of sessions that I love the most, which is that when you get to the classrooms at the conference center for these types of sessions, they are already preloaded with SolidWorks or with simulation software, whichever software you're looking to learn from that particular session. A lot of times they're preloaded with file sets. They may be preloaded with lesson information. So everyone's able to, again, just like it says, hands-on. Everyone's able to get hands-on keyboard and mouse experience going through an actual exercise so that you can learn whichever lesson is being taught within that course. So if you've ever been to 3D Experience World, or if it's been, you know, a few years since you've been to World, those are the two big types of sessions to look out for. And once again, you can go to 3dexperienceworld.com right now, not only to register for the conference, but even before you register, you can look at the agenda, see, you know, days 1, 2, and 3, what's coming up within those instructional courses, as well as those hands-on workshops. So I've teased a lot about these tactical sessions, and one of the reasons why this episode I think is going to be special is because we actually do have tactical presenters. So right now, I'm going to welcome on our first tactical presenter to give some tips that he has that are going to be shared at 3D Experience World in Dallas. I'm going to welcome on Zachary. So Zachary here is our first technical presenter. Zachary, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for joining us here on SolidWorks Live. So you are, just to be perfectly clear, you're going to be one of our tactical presenters, one among many, of course, at 3D Experience World in Dallas in February. So could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you do?
Yeah, so my name is Zachary Wilson, not the football player, unfortunately, but
that's why you distinguish. That's why you go by Zachary instead of Zach.
that's why, honestly, kind of. But yeah, I'm from Logan, Utah, where I work at a place called Apogee Instruments as a mechanical engineer. So Apogee does environmental sensors, so stuff for weather stations, greenhouses, and I've used SolidWorks the whole time I'm there. The whole time I've been there, excuse me, and have been able to learn a ton from that. Yeah, so most of the stuff I design is pretty small and intricate. We also use SolidWorks and 3D printing a lot to make jigs and fixtures and in-house stuff like that. We also, we're actually starting to get into the 3D printing side for production parts as well. So being able to use SolidWorks has been huge for that. And that kind of leads into what my presentation is about, because I've learned so much about 3D printing there. I've been able to understand a little bit more about the technology and learn how to design for it.
Awesome. Yeah. And actually heading into the show, I was saying that your backdrop, which I talked to you before on video. I think it's usually when you're at the office, your backdrop is like super topical, right? Like you have all the, you have like, I think like 4 or 5, probably more 3D printers in the background.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking a bit earlier. I've definitely taken that passion home with me and started a bit of a hobby here. And like I said before, it takes over your life. So I have one of my spare bedrooms here in my house just filled with 3D printers at this point. So, but it's good. I shouldn't complain.
Takes over your life, takes over your house, apparently.
Yeah.
These rooms in your house.
Yeah, everyone just has to get used to the noise whenever they come over. So
yeah, I bet. They're like, what's going on over there?
Right.
So, you know, you mentioned you're presenting on a 3D printing and design related topic. So we'll get into that in a second. But I wanted to ask you a question. I'm going to ask this question of all 3 of you, I should say, all 3 technical presenters that are sharing tips with us that stem from their future conference. Why do you go to World? Like, why did you register? What are you excited about with the conference coming up?
So I think first and foremost, it is just good to be surrounded by like-minded people.
Sure.
Especially at a company like mine. We're actually a really small company, and there's only 3 mechanical engineers, so we only have 3 seats of SolidWorks. So, and while that's awesome, I really appreciate the small company size. It is your scope of experience is definitely a little bit more limited that way. So it's really nice to go to World where you're surrounded by, you know, thousands of people that love SolidWorks as much as you do, and you can learn from them. So the instructional courses are just fantastic. My favorite are the tips and tricks type of courses where you just go and learn how to use the software better. And you know what? Plus, it's just a good time. It's just a lot of fun to go to, and a good way to get out of the office for a little while and hang out with some people that are like you. Oh, and the other thing I was going to mention is the certification courses.
Yeah, that's a huge
Those are huge. Yeah, last year I was able to get my CSWE at World. So
You got it at World?
yeah,
CSWE?
yeah, it was stressful.
This is a really weird coincidence because so there, for those of you who are CSWEs, which encompass less than 1% of SOLIDWORKS users worldwide, to be clear, certified SOLIDWORKS experts. Really hard certification to get. We have a CSWE event each year at World where only, predictably, only CSWEs are invited. It's like you mentioned, Zachary, being around your people. That, of course, is one way to do that. It's usually held in a cool location. Like last year, it was like a barcade style place.
Yeah.
And I met. It was the first time this ever happened. I met someone who got their CSWE at World at the event. I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine taking the test. And I remember taking the test. I was probably in my bedroom when I took that test. I can't imagine taking it at World. So kudos to you. Congratulations. That's
Well,
awesome.
thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, it was a stressful, like my password wouldn't work at first. So I had to be that guy that had to go get my password reset. So it was,
I would have lost
but
it.
it was,
failed.
it was absolutely worth it though.
That's cool, man. Well, I promised, everyone, we promised everyone that we would take a look at some tips that you have from your session. So let's pitch it there. So let's take a look at some tips that you have from your upcoming session. Now, if you haven't registered for World, if you have, go to 3DEXPERIENCEworld.com, look up Zachary's name or look up the session title. So the session title, and we'll talk about this in a second here in this little clip, but it's called "It's Not Your Printer's Fault: A Guide to Better 3D Printed Designs." Great title. And Zachary, thank you so much for jumping on. So let's take a look at this clip.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Zachary. So what do you have to show us here today?
So basically today I just wanted to do like a quick, very, very small version of what I'm going to be presenting at World this year.
Cool.
And my presentation is called "It's Not Your Printer's Fault: A Guide to Better 3D Printed Designs."
Definitely stopping my tracks, by the way.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you why?
Yeah, for sure. One, it reminded me a little bit of Go Will Hunting, the beginning there. So I'm sure I'm not the only one. If you're in the chat today as we're watching it, let me know if it somehow reminds you of Go Will Hunting. The beginning of it, namely the beginning of the title here. But also, yeah, it's just an unconventional title, and I think also the fact that 3D printing is generally just a discipline that continues to not only evolve but become more pervasive in terms of how it's used and how widely it's used.
Sure.
And yeah, anything 3D printing, I'm sure from now until the next 10, 20 plus years, I'm sure will remain and just continue to get more and more prevalent.
Yeah, 3D printing is absolutely a passion of mine. And working here at this job at Apogee Instruments, I've been able to definitely learn a ton about how it works. And one thing that I've learned is that, just like the title says, often it's not your printer's fault. It can be very tempting to just blame bad prints on the machine, but I would say 9 times out of 10, you can fix those problems right there in the design. So that's really what my presentation is about, is how to design better for the machine that you have. And it's mainly just going to be tips and tricks on how to overcome some of the common problems you see in 3D printing.
Very cool.
So I guess, yeah, my 3 key takeaways that I have for this one is, I'll just start with a very brief guide to 3D printing, since I'm sure most people are familiar with the technology at this point. And then I'll go into a little bit about the difference between 3D printing technology and which printer you should buy for your company, for yourself, whatever you're looking to get. And then the big chunk of my presentation this February will be why do my parts look so bad? And just like I said, we'll go through very common 3D printing problems and talk about how you can design to overcome those problems. So the one that I want to highlight today is something about bed adhesion. So if you know anything about 3D printing, you know that especially with higher temperature materials, stronger materials like ABS and ASA, you tend to get a lot of warping. So basically what's happening is the part is cooling at a different rate throughout the entire plastic part, since plastic just conducts heat so poorly, and it starts to pull itself, it starts to make a smiley face up off the print bed. And that's one of the most frustrating things. And if it gets bad enough, it can eventually lead to something like this,
It's a common visual.
Yeah, the dreaded spaghetti failure, So there's a lot of different ways you can overcome this. On the machine side, you can make sure your Z offset is calibrated. If your nozzle's too far away, obviously it's not going to stick to the bed. You can change your build surface. Different materials require different build surfaces. You can use adhesives like hairspray or glue. I've used Aquanet hairspray a lot to help my print stick, and I use just plain old Elmer's purple glue stick. But my favorite way is using a heat wall.
Okay.
So what a heat wall is you can see in this visual of, this is actually a part that has been sliced in a slicer. You can see that it has this blue ring around it that goes up almost the entire height of the part. So what that does is that will actually essentially block drafts and cool air from coming in, and it will keep the heat kind of trapped in around the part so it doesn't cool at different rates. And it really does help prevent warping.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's actually a really cool trick, and obviously that wall is just sacrificial, but it's worth it to prevent the warping. So a lot of slicers will do this automatically in the slicer, but since there's thousands of slicers that people use, sometimes you have to do it yourself. And there's an easy way to do this within SolidWorks if your slicer isn't one of those that does this in there. So we're going to talk about the silhouette tool real quick. And for this, we want to just make sure that we know the standard extrusion width of a 3D printer. An FDM 3D printer is 0.4 millimeters, because that'll come in handy later. So I'm going to jump over to SolidWorks.
Awesome.
So I got this little example part. I just made it yesterday. I mean, it's not anything important or special, but basically what this is something that if I were to try to 3D print this, it's about 5 inches long.
Okay.
And if anybody, I mean, if you're familiar with how 3D printing works, you know that long, skinny objects like this are the worst when it comes to warping. They're the most prone.
Sure, makes sense.
And especially if I'm trying to print on this surface right here, which is what I want to do. So what I'll do is I'm going to add a heat wall to this. So a really easy way to do this, and I also made it this part this way with this curved wall, because then I won't be able to convert entities easily. So if I make a sketch on this surface here, yeah, I want to get a wall around it, but the obvious way would be to convert entities. But since that's a smooth face, it's not going to let me do it well. So a handy tool is called the silhouette tool, and it's something that's pretty criminally underused in SolidWorks, if you ask me.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can't remember the last time, or maybe even the first time, if there was a first time that somebody presented on this tool.
Yeah, it's a cool tool. So where you go is to Tools and to Sketch Tools, and then find the Silhouette Entities tool. And then this, you select a body, and based on whatever face your sketch is on, it'll just take the outer edge or the silhouette of that body and make it into a sketch. So if I click my body there, hit go, you can see I have the lines that perfectly match the outside, which I wouldn't have.
That's perfect for what you need.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't have been able to do that easily with the Convert Entities tool. So now what I'll do from here is I'll select all these lines. I'll just use Control A to select everything. First, I want to change them to construction lines. And then I want to offset my entities here. So I'll offset them by about, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously this is going to be our wall. So you don't want to get too far away, because then air and drafts can get in there. So I usually do about 2 millimeters or something. And I have my dimensions here on SolidWorks set to inches, so it's going to be some weird numbers. But 3D printers like millimeters, so I have to force it to do that. So I'll offset that and get myself a nice line there. And that's going to be the basis of our heat wall. So what we'll do now is extrude it, and we'll hit the thin feature. And since, like I said before, the standard extrusion width of an FDM 3D printer is 0.4 millimeters. So that's about how thick I want my wall to be. And if you're finding that's too thin, you can up it to 0.8 millimeters. So it's 2 layers thick. But for this one, I will just do 0.4 millimeters for my thin feature. And then go up to surface and hit this top surface. And then when I extrude that, it's going to create a separate body. So I'll have 2 bodies here, but that'll be just a perfect little heat wall surrounding my part. And then when I drop this whole multi-body part into the slicer, It'll print it with that heat wall around there. It'll help the warping, and then I can just throw that heat wall away.
That is awesome. And it makes total sense to me the way you've explained it, that you'd need, or you'd want to desirably make a new heat wall conforming to the relative, as you said, the relative silhouette or the perimeter, right, of
Yeah.
art that you're looking to create. Because, right, if I just made like for example, a cylindrical wall each time, might not be the best. Might not actually be heat trapping enough for that particular case.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And it's not like you're using a ton of material either.
No, it's, I mean, this, like I said, this is one extrusion width. So this is one pass. So it's really not that much material. And you know, 3D printing material is usually fairly cheap. So it's okay to have some sacrificial parts every once in a while if you need it.
100%. That's awesome. So that's just one tip. That's just one tip. And I already learned something. And I'm, as you can imagine, I'm in and around SolidWorks all the time. And I've of course I've been fortunate enough to have gone to a lot of SolidWorks conferences, and it's one of the first times I've seen someone use that tool, and for a very, very, very practical purpose from someone who clearly knows what they're doing. So I definitely, yeah, I can't say enough. I would love to, and I will personally look to attend your presentation there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's very kind to say.
Cool. Yeah, man. Totally. So one more time, and thank you so much for presenting not only here, but at World in Dallas. So for everyone watching at home, it's not your printer's fault. A guide to better 3D printed design. Zachary, thank you so much, and hope to see you at World.
Yeah, of course. We'll see you then.
All right, everyone. So yes, be sure to look out for that session from Zachary. And thanks again to Zachary for jumping on here with us here at SolidWorks Live. Whether you're on YouTube or LinkedIn, be sure to subscribe, follow us there, but also just be sure to give, whether it's an emoji of two hands giving an applause or a thumbs up or a +1, please do that for Zachary there. Thank you so much. So a big part of any conference, right, and surely of this conference, is networking, right, to advance our careers, to expand relationships, to get more business, all sorts of reasons why I'd want to network, right? And our next guest knows a lot about that from a conference perspective, and that's Matt Clegg. Matt, welcome to SolidWorks Live.
Hey, Sean, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. What's going on?
Absolutely, man. So you actually have more red than I have here. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm naturally gifted with some red, so I've added more today just for this special occasion. So it's a good time.
That's good. That's awesome, man. So I mentioned, I mentioned networking, and it's important at the conference. And of course, you're part of the community team here at SolidWorks. And one aspect of that, of course, as it pertains to the conference, is that you guys are running what we call meetups. You guys are running meetups at the conference. And in terms of networking, there's stuff beyond that, like the Hive. That's a space where people come together to get to know one another and hang out and form bonds, right? So Matt, what, in your words, what's going on networking wise that our future attendees should know about at this point?
Well, like you mentioned, we got lots of opportunities on the menu of networking this year at World. The Hive is the first and foremost. This is our custom little space with comfy furniture and casual discussion area where we can have some product specific conversations within these meetups that'll be held in the Hive and some other rooms next to it as well. We're getting a pinball machine from 2-Bit Circus.
Sweet.
I'm super excited to talk about the live music jam space we're going to have with some instruments. I'm bringing this bad boy on the plane down to Dallas. If you have instruments, throw it in the trunk, overhead compartment. It's going to be a good time. And we also have the podcast area with Kirby and Johnny broadcasting the core podcast live. So it's going to be the spot to be. My hope is that we get a noise violation out of this. We're having such a good time. Let's see how it goes. Another one is we're bringing a lot of influencers to the playground. Jeremy Fielding. If you guys don't follow any of these channels, please jump on YouTube and give them a subscribe. They're incredible people and content creators. So Jeremy Fielding's going to be there. Brad from Impact Props, Master Chief, he's coming too. The Hacksmith team. We're bringing some really awesome projects that I guarantee you've seen on YouTube that I don't want to spoil here. You have to come and see for yourself. And we also have some program-specific evening events. We have the CSWE dinner. Zachary might see you there. Hopefully, all of us CSWEs are going to have a good time with Mike Puckett and his whole team. We have the SolidWorks User Advocacy Community Dinner. All of our champions, our slugging leaders, execs. We're going to get together and have some live music and really good food. And of course, the Tuesday night special event, top secret. The name is being decided as we speak, but it's very similar to the Bash on Broadway we have in Nashville. If you were there, hopefully you can remember that evening. It was a lot of fun. We do rent out multiple bars, restaurants, close down the end of a city block, and it's ours to have fun with. So, but as Zach mentioned, World is the biggest and best way to experience the global SolidWorks community. Networking happens organically all day, every day. And I guarantee you're going to go home with some new friends, some new SolidWorks skills, and even more memories.
That's great. Yeah, you're full on like game show host, halftime show guy. Like you are on today. I have nothing else to say about networking.
That's where the fun is, man. It's the best part.
Yeah, and there's so much to do, right? Of course, you know, I mentioned use cases for networking, right? You know, getting more business and making connections to advance your career, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all real things. But like you said, there's so many opportunities just to even have fun and enrich your life while at the conference. And one way I know throughout the year that you are in that vein all the time is within the Champions program. So those are, just to put it very in a very general way, those are our best and brightest, our most involved community members. What are some ways that our SolidWorks champions are involved at the event?
My personal favorite, we have one shot all year to meet in person, and that's at World. Normally, all of us live here in Zoom, you know, looking at computers all day. No more Zoom. We are in the same room. So far, I see about 50 of us champions that are registered to go to Dallas. We had our first in-person meeting since you started the program back in 2020. This was last year at Nashville. We had a blast. I cannot wait to do it again. I see several champions in the chat too. Shout out to everybody in the chat. So, but this Champion Summit is our time to share SolidWorks passion and expertise. We have technical presentations from student, professional engineers, and designers alike. It's a lot of fun. We also get to award our coveted SolidWorks Champion of the Year. Main stage, I'll be standing there with Dan and Suchit. Last year was Danny, Danute Petrova. She's in the chat. Shout out to her. We haven't announced this year's yet. If you're there, you're going to get to see it happen live. It's going to be something to remember. Another thing I'm super stoked about, the legendary Betty Baker is presenting with an equally legendary John Matrician. Their session, Jazzy SolidWorks Tips and Tricks. Make sure to check it out. I might bust in with the trombone. I gave it away. It's not going to surprise Betty now. She'll expect it. But nearly a century of collective SolidWorks expertise packed into 60 minutes of nonstop knowledge. Make sure to be there February 12th, right after lunch, 1:15 to 2:15 local time.
And contributing to that session as well, there was a third presenter, Joe Lance. He runs the unofficial, at this point it is pretty official, the Runners Club at World. People who don't sleep in by any means. They go out and they run to get the day started off right. So that is, and we'll talk about that session in a moment actually. But that is a session to look out for. So Matt, I know you're very busy this time of year, running programs, making sure that the networking end of the conference is the way we all know it will be. So just wanted to thank you so much for jumping on, and we'll all see you in Dallas.
You're welcome, and I won't be on the morning run, but I'll be there to wave everybody by with a cup of coffee. That's shout out to Joe for leading that. It's incredible. Thanks for having me, Sean. It's good to see you, man.
Thanks, man. All right, so speaking of champions, we just teased it. It's time for our next tech preview. So at this time, I'd like to welcome on to the SolidWorks live stage community superstar, Betty Baker. Betty, how's it going?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Great. So, you know, I know a lot of us here in the chat as we look at that on YouTube, on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for chatting. So many of us know who you are, very familiar with you, but For those of us who don't and are, of course, curious about your forthcoming session here at World and the tech tips we will get into today that stem from your session, just tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you do.
I'm a domestic case goods product engineer at Ashley Furniture in Arcadia, Wisconsin. I'm a Solidworks champion, a Solidworks user group leader, and I'm the Midwest US user group leader committee rep. And in my spare time, I'm a FIRST robotics coach.
You have spare time. I can't believe it. Like you do so much. It's interesting. You know, we'll talk about your session. We'll actually see some tips from your session that you're doing with John Matrician and Joe Lance. But one of the factoids that's in the description for the session mentions the very relevant fact that you guys have a combined 80+ years of SolidWorks and industry experience. Which, like, where are you going to get that? Where else are you going to get that but 3D Experience World? Hugely impressive. You've been to this conference, which has been going on, World, we would just say generally, it's been going on for many years now, decades, right? So if I wanted to ask in terms of the value of the conference and why people keep coming back, if I wanted to ask anyone, and just looking for an answer to that question for myself, I'm thinking about registering, I would surely ask you. So Betty, you personally, reasons small or large, why do you keep coming back? Why register for 3D Experience World?
You get to come and hang out with the cool kids for a whole week. I mean, the networking is just awesome. And, like Zachary said before, there's so much going on. It's long days, but they're packed from morning till night. So there's something the whole time. But of course, it's the technical sessions for all the learning that's going on there. I mean, you just can't beat these sessions that are given by actual users.
For sure. So, and once again, you are delivering one of those technical sessions, which I can't wait for. I will show my actual agenda, at least my tentative agenda personally, a little bit later. I will spoil it. This session is surely on the list, the one we're going to get a sneak preview of here. So let's take a look at that session. Let's pitch it there. Let's take a look at some tips from your upcoming session, which is called Jazzy Tips and Tricks. And basically these are SolidWorks tips, right, for daily SolidWorks users from this real cast of characters that you guys are. Three great presenters that have years of industry experience. Again, 80+ years of combined experience. So let's take a look at this snippet, I would say, from that upcoming session.
All right, Betty. So what do you have for us here today?
Well, we're just going to go through a whole bunch of different tips during my presentation, but a few of them that we're going to start with today are just really simple ones, showing you different ways to gain some more real estate on your page. So one of the first ones that I was going to show you is everyone has the taskbar pinned, usually right over here, the task pane. So a quick one that we do is Control and F1. So it's gone.
F1. I don't think I knew that one. So Control F1, does that hide the task pane?
Yep, it goes away, and Control F1 brings it right back for you. So you can keep it pinned.
I already learned something.
So yeah, you can keep it pinned, but when you do want more real estate, I have a small drawing up here, but yeah, it's just Control F1 and hides it and brings it back.
Now your presentation, we probably just mentioned it, right? It's the title is Mastering SolidWorks, Tips and Tricks for Daily SolidWorks Users, and you'll be presenting with two other longstanding members of the SolidWorks community. Now that one is certainly one, right? If you're using a SolidWorks PDM or using Toolbox or using the view palette, right, for drawings,
right.
That's one I could see myself certainly. It seems like a lot of times SolidWorks Jedis, they'll say, yeah, I know Adam Abernacle has said this to me before at a user group meeting, that he almost seeks to just sort of never have to go ahead and touch the mouse or just move around a ton, right? It's like, if I know my keyboard shortcuts, a lot of times if that's your thing, keyboard shortcuts, knowing little ones like this saves you a lot of time from using the mouse.
Correct. Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah, so and another one, just to keep on that pace and free up more real estate, is F9. So F9 hides this for you. So your feature manager tree is gone if you press F9. F9 brings it back for you.
That is really cool. I don't think a lot of people, certainly, I didn't know this for years. A lot of people know that you can take the feature manager away, which it's just one of those things. And I feel like developmentally, it's one of those areas where throughout the years, we've been trying to add more ways to get more screen real estate back, like when you don't need
Yeah.
it, like with breadcrumbs, right? Like that was a big thing.
Yep.
And now a number of years back, but yeah, that's great. I mean, that's awesome for saving screen real estate because let's be honest, you don't really, whether it's a part or assembly drawing in this case, you don't always need the feature tree right there accessible to you all the time. It doesn't need to be persistent. So that's an awesome keyboard shortcut.
Yep, and then we'll just keep going with F10, which got rid of this whole top row for me.
Wow. So you can, yeah, you can basically get rid of. So you've essentially just now shown us, okay, all these distraction, all these buttons that I only need when I need them, but most of the time I don't need them.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. If I'm a manager looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, well, you think of how many distractions you have, like on a web page, right? Or really, your desktop, anywhere where there's multiple buttons or just things looking for your attention. You have now saved us a lot of distraction.
Right, and it's all right there on your keyboard, and your hand is typically right there. So yeah, it's
Who knew?
right at your fingertips.
Great tips for daily users for sure.
Yeah. So do you want to see some more?
Absolutely, yeah. I think I speak for everyone. I'm not going to pull the chat.
Okay, that's good. So another one that a lot of people really don't know about is, as you can see on this drawing, I have the word laminate on here 4 different times. So a quick Control F brings up a find and replace text box. So I want to go in, and everywhere that I see the word laminate, I'm going to replace it with my name. So I'm just going to go in here and hit replace all. It's going to tell me I'm replacing it 4 times and saves you on typing.
That's
If
awesome.
you made a mistake, you spelled something wrong, we're doing copy paste, whatever you were going to do. So, and it's every single place that it's used.
That's really cool. So that's also it's case sensitive. It finds partial strings, it looks like. So
Correct. Yeah. So,
that's
and
really
then,
cool.
yeah, so that's a quick one that you can do. And probably another one that a lot of people don't realize too is if you want to move this dimension, say you want it on this view.
Okay.
So we're going to highlight this dimension, hold down shift, and drag it over. It will pop over.
That's awesome. So you don't actually have to delete it.
No, you don't. So you can just grab it and drag it over.
That's like an awesome tip that you can do. Now I think one of the things I really love about that tip, now you might be thinking, or someone might be thinking, well, why don't you just delete it and then just reestablish it? You probably have views on this as well, but I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that it's actually looking to connect to the actual edge, right?
Correct.
So if you weren't someone, or as we often say, if it was you 3 months ago that established a dimension, it's a little bit of foolproofing in the operation you just did, which I think is really smart.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to be showing, all kinds of drawing tips, sketching tips, like I said, shortcuts, ways to get more real estate. So I just have a whole list of things we're going to be showing and going through that day.
Yep. So everyone watching at home or at the office, right? It's, we just looked at, I don't know, it was 5 or 6 tips. It was you, the single presenter, and we'll have you and 2 others, right? We'll have Joe Lance and Dom Attrition, who are no doubt heckling us right now in the chat. But Betty, thank you so much for jumping on here at SolidWorks Live, and I hope to catch your session over in Dallas.
Yeah, I hope we pack the room. It's gonna be great. This is my first time I'm presenting, so I'm
No
really
way.
excited. Yeah, my first time at World.
Are you kidding
So
me? Wow.
yeah, I'm really excited. So
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for everyone watching. I'm excited for
yeah,
everyone that's going to be at World. That's going to be surely going to be a treat. So thanks again.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks again to Betty. I'm just laughing. So I'm looking at the chat. I see Betty is now going into the chat. Betty says, yes, they are heckling right now in the chat. And yep, I see that as well. So Betty, John, Joe, you're all amazing. I will definitely look to make it to your session, which is a bit of a teaser for what we're getting into here. So before we get to our third tech preview for the 3D Experience World Conference that's coming up and only will only be in person in Dallas in February, I wanted to do two things. So I've been teasing this throughout the episode. I wanted to show you my personal mock agenda that I built at 3DEXPERIENCEWorld.com, which many of you can today. And I also wanted to talk about some of the other activities you can take in that occur in the space called the 3D Experience Playground. So we'll get to that after this. But first, once again, I wanted to go over some of these sessions that I've selected here. First off, disclaimer, these are only instruction courses. These do not consist of hands-on sessions. I mentioned I love those. There are a lot of different hands-on sessions. Those are the sessions where you go into the classroom, the machines are right there. You can take in a lesson hands-on with other members of industry, other community members. So definitely check those out. And you can filter directly to those too on the agenda site. So these are some of, I guess I should say these are some of my favorite instruction courses. So first off, day one, right after the big show, the keynote speeches that happen during general session, the product announcements that always happen. I'm going with SolidWorks API 101. Now, the reason is for me as much about the topic itself as it is about the presenter. Now, this is one of my favorite parts about World, that you get to just learn from the global community. And Artem, I think anyone that's ever looked up a SolidWorks API related topic to any means, I believe Artem has a website called CodeStack. Works for Zariel here, also a SolidWorks champion. If you're going to learn SolidWorks API from anyone over the course of an hour and you want to make that time worthwhile, definitely check out this session occurring at 10:45 local time in Dallas. So that's really the first one there. Jazzy tips and tricks. So just kind of going across here, Jazzy tips and tricks. Of course, we just talked a lot about that session. We got some previews of that session. Definitely want to take that one in. We have another session here, manage and control your SolidWorks with, let's see, change management there. Sorry, it's a little bit low, a little bit tiny on my screen there. So that's with Matthew Fontana. If you're on LinkedIn and you've ever seen someone talking about data management or sharing a tip or trick about even just how to store your SolidWorks data effectively, might have been from Matthew. So Matthew is actually a member of one of our partners over at Swift, and that's going to be occurring at 2:45 there. And then, of course, it's not your printer's fault, a guide to better 3D printed designs with our friend Zachary Wilson to round off my day one agenda. So I'm not saying these are the best sessions for anyone. Of course, there are sessions that are occurring on simulation, on manufacturing, different sessions on SolidWorks. Future tools that we've seen on SolidWorks Live before, like 3D Sculptor. But for my day one, that's what I'm going with for now. That's my tentative agenda. So let's take a look at my day two here as I filled it out. And these are just screenshots, but you can see on the upper right here, it says removed from my agenda. So I've actually added these to a legitimate agenda. I've reserved my spot already. And if you go on the site now, 3dexperienceworld.com, you'll see some of these actually you can add. Some of the sessions are already full. So people are registering for the conference, and people are definitely filling out their agendas. Now, usually in those cases, there is some kind of standing room only, but yeah, people are setting your agendas. So let's see how I customize my SolidWorks user interface and why you should do so. This is another case, just like with Artem, to begin my day one. My day two is pretty similar here with Michael. Michael is a longtime user group leader, longtime SolidWorks champion as well, and works at Traka. Probably seen Traka, their vehicles on the loading screen for SolidWorks probably several times. Definitely want to learn from Michael. This is one of those sessions where if you're going to save, minutes a day, hours a day, again, it's February, it's 2024, you're just starting out the year. This is one of those great sessions where you can learn how to optimize your workflows in an hour while you're in Dallas and learn from one of the best. So I'm definitely going to look for that one. Ed Eaton, another legendary presenter. Make it Shell, understanding how Shell works and beating the tricky ones. So many people would say, I'm sure in the chat, if there is an Ed Eaton session on design, Ed's from the DeMonte Group, senior industrial designer there. You probably want to take that in. Save time, create fewer parts, assemblies, and tacos. I'm not going to spoil too much of that. I'll just say, because we do have one more technical presenter, but I love the title. I mentioned that to Sean, who we'll talk to in just a moment. SolidWorks tips and tricks from Adam Aberneckel. So quick tip here, you can click for session details when you're on the actual site and looking at the agenda so you can get a description. But we also have these tags. You can see those color tags that you can filter by. So if you're looking for a specific domain, a specific product you have, even level of difficulty or level of skill that's recommended for the session, beginner, intermediate, advanced, you can filter by one or more of those criteria. So something like this, SolidWorks tips and tricks, I'm probably going to look at the session details, kind of get a greater idea of what the key takeaways of the session are going to be before I click that, add to my agenda button. For me, I did that, and I also know the presenter in this case. So Adam Aberneckel, Adam and Brad Meador, who are both user group leaders, both SolidWorks champions. Again, they both work at Altec as engineers. They are great SolidWorks presenters. And so I know if Adam is giving me his tips and tricks, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be worth my 1 hour slot right there. So that rounds up my day 2. So let's move on to Sean's current day 3 of instructional courses. So, and keep in mind, while you have hours of content, if you fill out your agenda here, once again, remember, this doesn't include right now, it doesn't include for me any meetups I might go to. This doesn't include the general sessions where we have those keynote speakers coming to share their insights, inspire us. So it doesn't include any of those things just yet. So if we're just talking instructional courses, 3D scanning and mesh data for reverse engineering. Arthur Young Spivey, I don't even know if Arthur knows who I am, to be perfectly honest with you, but I've been to several of Arthur's sessions, and he is considered, and I can verify, he's an expert in this area of 3D scanning. So you want to hear from someone who actually does it and has done it for years and knows what they're doing. Spend an hour with Arthur. I definitely recommend it. Making the most out of cloud services for every SolidWorks user with Todd Trout. So Todd, I think this is actually the first session where I have a Dassault System employee, and there are many sessions where Dassault System or SolidWorks employees are giving these instructional or hands-on lectures. So Todd is someone that works on our customer adoption team, and he's working with customers and partners all the time who are looking to bring on cloud services, which comes with each new seat of SolidWorks to help, whether it's manage their data better or store their designs better or more efficiently or more accessibly, or even just share their models a little bit easier. If you want to spend some time with an expert on that, definitely attend that session. And then configurations featuring sheet metal and weldments from Nicole Walden, another longtime community member. I definitely recommend checking that out, 2:15 to 3:45. And that puts you right about where we had that closing kind of keynote session, that closing general session for day 3. So altogether, that's hours and hours worth of content. And that was catered for me, my interest. There's tons of sessions on simulation. You can filter those on 3DEXPERIENCEworld.com. Tons of sessions on manufacturing, all different sorts of topics and skill levels. So I definitely recommend today, even if you're not going there to register today, just go and check it out. You can look at the agenda at 3DEXPERIENCEworld.com. So another major area that I wanted to spend time on today, as we give you this 3D Experience World preview, is the fun. We talked about it a little bit with Matt Clegg a moment ago. A lot of that, besides those areas that we've already discussed, like networking with Matt and learning things you enjoy and help you at your job, right? And that's all very fun to me. They occur in a space we call the 3D Experience Playground. So in the 3D Experience Playground, you're going to see a ton of impressive machines, additive and subtractive, the latest and greatest there. But my favorite part, besides the software and hardware tech expos that you'll see in the 3D Experience Playground, just overall, is the Maker Zone. And I think we have a clip here showing you some of the cool stuff that's going on there. But so this is one of my friends that I've collaborated with on several projects. His name is Brad Thompson. He runs this channel called Impact Props, over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. You've probably seen his custom Master Chief or Halo suit there. So this is kind of his look that he gave of the conference. Now, a lot of these, you can see James Hobson from Hacksmith there, tons of different creators. You're just going to find some of the most creative people at the conference in the Maker Zone, which occurs in the 3D Experience Playground. Some of those fun people there too. You can see they run resin workshops, all different sorts of workshops there. So it's artists, makers, creators, people with again, social followings in the millions there. So definitely stop by, see what's going on. You'll learn a thing or two. You'll meet some great people. It's difficult not to be inspired, and of course we all go to conferences in some way to be inspired. So definitely check that out. We'll have some great things. Hey, there's Matt. Some great things coming up in the playground this year. All right, so we are at the time right now that we're going to introduce our third tech preview for 3D Experience World. And for that third tech preview, I want to welcome on our third presenter for today. And that is a Sean who utilizes the correct spelling of the name Sean. How's that? Did you like that one?
Good, yes. When we were prepping for this, I said, hey, I have kind of a technical situation here. Can we call Sean Scene and me Sean?
Dude, I told you. I mean, I've heard it all, which is fine. Yeah, as long as you make some form of an attempt, it's okay.
Yeah.
So Sean, once again, thanks for jumping on SolidWorks Live here. Can't wait to check out your presentation in Dallas. But for right now, just tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you do.
Yeah, so my name is Sean Pansky. I work for a company called Twin City Fan and Blower. It's on my shirt. I am a principal engineer. A lot of what I do anymore, I've had several roles since I've been here. All the way, I actually started here as a welder 23 years ago.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Right, and I worked several jobs on the manufacturing floor, and I actually went to school while I worked here full time, all those kinds of fun things. Got my mechanical engineering degree. During that time, I was a drafter, and then I started, doing engineering stuff. Now, what I do is a lot of DriveWorks and ERP implementation.
Yeah.
So, but along the way, I have picked up a lot of things that, I tried to do to make my life easier, writing macros and equation-based modeling and things along those lines. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. But yeah.
Yeah, we shared some stories the other day, just talking about your upcoming session, of course, talking about this episode here of SolidWorks Live, of even just some names, and I shared Arkem's name a bit ago.
Yeah.
Just all the sort of cool ways and interesting ways you come to learn things, specifically in this area of design automation, right? Because we kind of share that in
Right.
common.
And I should give a shout out too. You said you were going to Artem's presentation. So part of what I'm going to be doing will be VBA API stuff. So if you're watching my preview and you like that, hey, go to that presentation. That's going to prep you for a little bit of what I'm doing. I'm not going to go too in depth with it. Either that or, guys like Keith Rice or Deepak Gupta, or there's a lot of guys that know a lot of stuff out there. So yeah, all of those guys are great resources.
Totally. I've learned from all three of those names, I've learned a ton over the years. So we talked about prior to or after a 3D Experience World, some people we've learned from, and just learning online. But when it comes to just being in person at the conference, why do you register for 3D Experience World?
99% of why I want to go to 3D Experience World is for the networking. To me, the networking is better than anything you can find anywhere else. So last year I ran into a guy that, you know, we're using DriveWorks to do
Mhm.
our ERP implementation, and we're using Epicor for our ERP system. I actually ran into a guy that was using DriveWorks to do an ERP implementation with Epicor. And I would have never found that had I not been at World.
Yeah.
So, you know, it allows you to find the like-minded individuals who are potentially working on the same thing you're doing and collaborate and share ideas.
That's huge, and a lot of times there's a duo of guys. So it's Kirby Downey and Johnny Harrison, and they run at World. Just two fellow attendees. They run a podcast, and they kind of theme it around this idea of hallway hangouts. And a lot of times, just people you bump into, whether it's at a
Right.
session or right in the corridor, or wherever it happens to be. That's kind of where you get some of the best value out of the conference. So
Right.
I've certainly seen that as well.
Well, and I was talking with Heather Hawes from DriveWorks a month or two ago. I don't
Mhm.
remember how long. And she's like, yeah, we need to find a spot and a time to let all the DriveWorks administrators, you know that we're going to meet up and everybody kind of hang out. And it's like, yeah, that'd be great, because we don't get to do that now that, DriveWorks has their own world, but theirs is all virtual anymore. So,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Heather's an awesome. I know many people within the user group space can say she's an amazing community enabler and advocate. And that's what the conference is for. Your session is interesting. So we talked a bit about how, of course, if anyone reads the session title, they should get this idea, right? It is about automation. It's save time, create fewer parts and assemblies, and tacos.
We're not going to spoil the tacos.
No. No, anyone can see that tacos is in the title. You don't have to tell us why it's there. But yeah, I love the title, and of course, tacos is part of the reason why, at least as I was scrolling through the sessions, that I stopped. But yeah, let's take a look at that, Sean. Sean, first of all, thank you so much for jumping on. Thank you so much for volunteering to present at 3D Experience World. But yeah, let's take a look at the session.
All right, sounds great.
All right, Sean. So what do you have for us here today?
All right. So I kind of want to look at some ways to make everybody's life a little bit easier. We all like to be lazy to some degree. So
to some degree, varying degrees.
Varying degrees. I am no exception to that. So I have made a point to make myself very lazy. And let's get myself ready to do what I want to do here. And I have kind of done some things to make it so I don't have to make as many parts. I can let my computer make them for me. There are many different ways to do this, so I kind of want to showcase a couple of them. I'm going to do a session at 3D Experience World that'll kind of go a little bit deeper into this, right? So we're just going to kind of do high level on a couple of them. So the first one I have is macros. So what I'm going to show you here is I have written a macro to do basically an assembly that we do quite often. And I work in the fan industry, so fans and blowers. So if you see some things that relate to fans and blowers and what have you, that's why. So we're going to put in a fan weight. I don't know. It doesn't matter what I put in here. This just does its thing. Fan RPM, we're going to go 1300. Motor weight, let's just say 125. Motor RPM 1750 is a common one. And we're going to say next. So, again, I'm just going to kind of keep punching numbers into here, and I'm randomly picking numbers. I'm not going to randomly pick numbers on everything. Like this is the bolt hole diameter. I don't want to get too big because it'll overshoot the channel flange. So I'm just going to kind of put 9/16 in there.
Now, as you're entering some numbers in here, Sean, the title of your presentation at 3D Experience World is Save Time, Create Fewer Parts and Assemblies, right?
Yep.
And you and I have talked. You mentioned just now, actually, right? That what you're using here is a macro, and you're using these user form controls. And I'm guessing it's probably not just you that's using this at your company, right? I'm guessing
Correct.
more than just you. How many people roundabout say even just use this particular macro?
I don't know, honestly. I wrote this thing probably close to 10 years ago.
And it's still being used.
It's still being used. And, you know, our drafting department on the state side has dwindled a little bit. You know, we're probably, you know, drafting engineering down around the less than 50 count. But we do have an office over in Chennai, India, and their numbers are much higher than ours. So those guys probably use it much more than we do over here.
And
So-
you're making it so that, I mean, you're just asking the user, whoever's filling this out, to fill in key dimensions. They're not having to pinpoint. I'm trying to hone in on, you know, how you're saving time, not only just as the modeler, but just even more holistically amongst coworkers, right? You're just having to know what your desired key dimensions are. You're not having to know, okay, is this driven at the extrusion level or at the sketch level, and where do I even making, you know, opening and saving as, like, it doesn't seem like the user is actually doing any of this in this instance, which
They're
is
not.
quite remarkable.
Well, as of right now, there's no part open.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So as of right now, this macro, which is done in VBA, which, you know, it's completely tied to SolidWorks at this point. It's just running a user form. There's no parts, there's no assemblies, there's nothing. It's just the forms that you have seen so far. Now, as soon as I hit OK here, you'll see my parts are stored in the vault. So it's asking me if I want to check stuff out, and I'm going to say no. But as soon as I hit OK, it's actually going to open a part, and it's going to poof, change the dimensions, and there's your part.
So that's quicker than I could have done it manually. And again, you don't have to remember all that stuff. You don't have to have all of that institutional knowledge. You don't have to be reaching out to a CAD admin or have to go searching for things. And you know that the source parts, right, if it's programmed correctly, that they're the right parts. So that's an awesome way to save time.
So then you can actually kind of see the dimensions that I have put in will match what was on that form.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can see why it's been used for 10 plus years.
So then if we have time real quick, there's one more I kind of want to go over.
Absolutely.
So one of the other components of this that we're going to go over at 3D Experience World is an equation-based model. So this is, I made this real quick and dumb skid model just as an example. And basically, if I have a fan that's this big by this big, I want a skid that's at least 4 inches bigger on all sides. And I want it to be designed appropriately. So if I go in here, there's a height, width, length, and a unit weight. So I don't have this set up to be a full crate, so the height doesn't account for anything at the moment. So Sean, I am going to ask you, what should we put in for the width?
Let's go with 33.
33. Okay. What should we do for the length?
Length, let's go 90.
90. And what do you want for the weight?
100.
100. That's not going to change anything. God, you're no fun.
Well, it's interesting. This is you know, we're talking about presenting at 3D Experience World, but I guess really this probably applies to presenting anywhere.
Right.
I was definitely anchoring myself to the the numbers that I saw worked in some capacity. And I was like, maybe I'll go 20% more, 20% higher, you know, with each one, or 20% lower. Yeah, maybe to be a bit more fun, I should have gone with some wild numbers.
Yeah, challenge me. So, like this one, there's a rule for the weight that if it's over 800 pounds, it'll actually change the size of a certain component. And then let's say, I don't know, granted it's lumber, right? We can't get too crazy with it, but let's say this is 144.
Okay.
And this is, I don't know, 86. Significantly different than what we had before.
Definitely different now. Okay. Yeah, the model looks much different as well as a result.
Right. So basically, here again, it's the same part you're starting with. You're going to have to create a part for every instance you want, like for a particular job, if you will. But I don't have to make it. I can open that one part, change those 3 values, poof, we're done.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So,
as far as saving time, and you and I have discussed, right, whether in different cases, different skill levels kind of call for different ways of automating, but macros using the SolidWorks API, it certainly seems to have proven to be a worthwhile way for you guys.
Yep.
So that's great.
So yeah, and then, you know, a couple of other things that I want to touch on in 3D Experience World. I'm going to look at configurations a little bit, and then I also want to look at DriveWorks. We use DriveWorks a lot, and I've used DriveWorks significantly in the last 10-ish or so years. So those are the other 2 cases we're going to look at 3D Experience World. So
cool. Yeah, I am looking forward to it. For this episode, and I probably have already shown it at this point, I will put together an agenda, a mock agenda of sessions that have piqued my personal interest. I'm not saying these are the very best of the best, but they're ones I'm interested in. And you asked me a couple of days ago, Sean. You said, why did I stop? And you know, really look at your session, reach out to you to ask you if you could share a tip or 2 from your forthcoming session. And I mentioned, because of these conferences, so often we're talking about designing more efficiently, and we're talking about making cooler looking parts and better parts, but not very often do I see session titles that say create fewer of the things that we're talking about making more of and better of, right? Parts, assemblies. So this certainly makes a ton of sense when you explain it the way that you do, and I certainly recommend that anyone who's thinking of heading out to 3D Experience World in Dallas take a look at Sean's session. Once again, that is save time, create fewer parts and assemblies. Thank you so much for jumping on, Sean.
all right, well, I hope to see plenty of people out there at 3D Experience World.
100%. See you there.
All right.
All right. Thanks again to Sean, to Zachary, to Betty, to Matt Clegg. Man, I forgot to tell you about Model Mania, where you can compete with other SolidWorks users to see who can model a complicated part and simulate it the quickest, en route to possibly winning some awesome prizes, or how we have superstar laden sessions with thousands of people in them, you know, dedicated to, you know, separately, of course, to the latest thought leadership and technology advances in simulation in one case, and then another session with thousands of people in them in design, and then one for manufacturing. And hey, look, I hope the old adage here is true once again. When you've already sold, stop selling. You know, I hope we've convinced you with that one goal we have for the episode. Please go to 3D Experience World if you can. We're gonna have a great show. So head out to 3dexperienceworld.com today to learn anything more that you need to learn prior to registering, or, you know, for everything you need to convince your boss if you have one. And remember, the fun will only be happening in Dallas this year, and I can't wait to see you next time live and in Texas. So we will have some SolidWorks live content. I saw a couple of you in the chat just asking about that. We will have some SolidWorks live content live in Texas, but once again, all the stuff we talked about, hands-on sessions, instructional courses, and networking sessions, that's all going to be in Dallas in February. So thanks again. Thank you to our production team as well. We will see you soon, and thank you so much for spending time with us overall in 2023. Take care.